What up, YouTube? It's your boy Open Mind. And boy, did we have a crazy week. Week was crazy. Week was wild, y'all. You know, I really wasn't going to even speak on this on my channel. I've spoken on it on a couple of podcasts I've done. Different podcasts. I don't have the links right now for one of the podcasts. But of course, y'all can check out Nerd Soul, most recent podcast, speaking on this issue. So check out Nerd Soul channel. You want to hear what I had to say on that particular podcast. But I've had time to process this, right? And I've had time to see how social media is handling it and the real world, like people that I just run into in the real world, that how they feel about it. But what I want to speak on is something that ain't nobody talking about. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'll say that. I ain't gonna say they're not talking about it. They just don't want to, because if they talk about it this way, then they're forced to have to hold Chris Rock accountable. Right? And this isn't me defending Will Smith at all. Like, I ain't making a video to defend Will Smith or Jada Pinkett. It's not what I'm doing. How is Chris Rock wrong? Chris Rock ain't technically wrong for nothing, per se. But the word here is accountability, selective accountability. That's the title of this video. Selective accountability, where we select the people we want to hold accountable and ignore the people we want to let slide. We only want to hold this person or this group accountable, and we're not going to focus on that group or that person over there who's done something worse or similar. We're going to let them slide because that's different. That's not the same comparison. Some things aren't a comparison. It's just if you're going to hold somebody to a standard because you don't like said somebody, but the person you like who has similar or worse issues than the person you like, you will not hold them accountable because you like them. It's selective accountability. Selective outrage. Selective. Pick and choose. Cherry pick. Right? So it's not Chris Rock that I'm holding accountable. This ain't Chris Rock. This ain't a dig at Chris Rock or a video about Chris Rock. This video is about comedians. I'm addressing comedians in this video. Everybody who has ever told a joke and got paid for telling a joke. You make money telling jokes, I'm talking to you. What's being said by comedians is that, and not just comedians, this is people saying it too, of course, fans and just regular people saying it too, but the comedians are the ones igniting this torch. The torch is in question is, people these days are too sensitive. Nobody can take a joke anymore. I miss the old days when people could take a joke and laugh and get over themselves. Can't do that no more. Being a comedian is hard because people are sensitive. This is what's being said. This is the gripe. This is the lament. The comedians are lamenting about the fact that nowadays there's a sensitive culture, and that as they tell their jokes, this is before Will Smith and Chris Rock incident, the comedians have been complaining about the fact that their jokes offend so many people. You tell one joke, and then the whole community comes after you and make you out to be something you're not. It was just a joke, people. That's how the comedian responds to the public. But I want to zero in on an aspect that comedians are refusing to acknowledge. And that is evolution, change, atmosphere, climate. I'll give an example before I make my point. I'm going to give the example first. Normally you make your point, then you give an example. I'm going to give the example first, then I'll make the point. Example. Richard Pryor, who we all deem is the king of comedy. For a long time, Richard Pryor was dropping N-bombs all over his comedy set. Nigga, 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 nigga. In front of these white folks. He said nigga a lot. He said nigga and nigger in his specials. The hard R and the term of endearment, nigga, like my nigga. He used the N-word a lot in his stand-ups. Then he went to Africa. He did a stand-up about himself going to Africa. And y'all, and those of y'all who know anything about Richard Pryor, y'all know where I'm going with this, right? But follow along. There are people who don't follow. There are people who just know the name Richard Pryor, but haven't actually sat down and watched the specials. They have not watched Richard Pryor's comedy to see why he's revered as the king of comedy. They just know the name in the face. But let me take y'all to a comedy special back in the day with Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, and this ain't me saying it verbatim because I'm just going off the dome off of sheer memory of what he said in general. So so what I'm about to say as far as Richard Pryor is concerned may not be his exact words. Of course, you would have to find this video and listen to what he said. He said something to the effect of, I went to Africa and I saw that it wasn't no niggas in Africa. It was just black folks. When I came back to America, I don't want to call nobody else a nigga no more. That's black, that look like me. And from that point forward, he stopped using the N-word in his comedy specials. Nobody came to him and said something to the effect of, you offend me with your N-words. It's not like an African group of people protested. Sorry about that. Phone was ringing. It's not that an African group of people protested him and saying, Richard Pryor, we're offended by the fact that you use the N-word. Nah, that's not how it happened. Richard Pryor had an epiphany. Like a guilt trip came over him when he went to Africa, landed at the airport, and saw how African people carry themselves. They black folks, but they're not American black folks. They welcomed him in and showed him so much love and compassion, and he was surprised that they even knew who he was. He really got emotional, and it wasn't a stand-up bit. He was just at the airport, in the city, just amongst the people. He wasn't even on stage. The fact that he was saying nigga so much made him feel guilty when he got around African people. So he decided, I'm not going to say nigga no more in my specials. Not to down anybody else, any other comedian who still want to do it, I'm just not going to do it because I feel like it's wrong. Richard Pryor. And from that point on, before he stopped doing comedy, got sick, and eventually passed away, he wasn't dropping no more N-bombs in his comedy specials. But those comedy specials are hardly anywhere to be found. Like, it's hard to find a Richard Pryor comedy special where he's not saying nigga. Them tapes is lost. The tapes and the clips and the specials that you are able to access are specials where Richard Pryor is dropping a lot of N-bombs. Because that's all people have. They don't have the other specials where he stopped saying nigga. Still funny, still holding white people accountable for their racism and all of his comedy. But he just wasn't saying nigga no more. We can't find those specials. There's a reason for that. It's a reason for that. But we just can't find them. That's just a fact. They're not they're not impossible to find, but you can't just Google it or search it and it'll pop up. You got to do some digging to find Richard Pryor's specials where he's not dropping N-bombs. What I'm saying is this. Richard Pryor realized that the climate was changing, that the culture was changing, and that even though nobody confronted him about his use of the N-word, he told himself that he's going to stop using it in his comedy specials because he don't want to offend nobody. This is a man who didn't have to be told that his comedy was offensive, which I'm sure he has been told that, but he didn't change it because somebody told him his comedy was offensive. He realized that I just came to Africa, never been to Africa before in my life. I come here and these people showing me love. They not ghetto, they not hood. They showing me love. They welcome me like I'm a king. They treated me like I was a king. My own people in another land. My own people here in America don't treat me like that. But I went to Africa. Africans treated me like a king. I ain't gonna say nigga no more. That's Richard Pryor. So now let me make my point. Now that I've given the example. The point is this. You comedians keep saying how people is too sensitive and people can't take a joke. And it's your job to tell jokes, and if you can't take it, that's on you. And that's y'all dismissive, narcissistic response to some shit you said that on stage or on a video clip that offended people. Y'all need to learn how to change with the climate. Evolve. Change. Adjust. And that's your problem. You won't say it in those words. You won't use those words verbatim. I have an issue adjusting. You're just going to say shit like, people too sensitive, they can't take a joke. I'm a comedian. It's my job to tell jokes, to make fun of people, to make fun of things, to make things funny. That's what y'all say out y'all mouth. That's the words y'all use. But the truth is, you have a problem adjusting. You settle into a space and you get comfortable, you stretch your feet out, you know what I'm saying? You settle in and you get real comfortable, right? And you don't want to move. You don't want to move from that spot. You don't want to adjust because you're comfortable. You're comfortable in your space. But the environment around you is changing. It's evolving, which requires you to adjust, because if you don't adjust, that space you in is gonna get real tight. And you're gonna be all like this, bunched up in that little space you in that you don't want to get out of, because the environment around you is starting to change and evolve. So you're really not mad at people who are offended per se. You're mad at the fact that you have to adjust with the people. Different generations of people are growing up and becoming adults. There are a generation of adults who could take those jokes. There's a generation of adults who could take those jokes but hold you accountable. There's a generation of adults who just cannot take those jokes. Those three different generations, as an example, hypothetically. But all of those three generations are in the crowd at your comedy show. You're entertaining some old school minded people who can take a joke. You're entertaining some woke minded people who can take a joke but hold you accountable. And then you got a crowd of ultra sensitive people who are maybe young adults, 21, 22, 23, 24. And that generations of adults ain't taking your shit. You may not like how they respond. You may be irritated at the fact that they're so sensitive. But you can't tell these people how to feel. The climate is changing. The culture is changing. Take it to the movie industry. There are certain movies that was a hit in the 90s that are not a hit in the 20s. As certain movie industries try to revamp and repackage certain franchises and push them back on us, they're not well received a lot of times. Whereas there's a cult classic movie that a lot of people liked part 1 and part 2 of, And then y'all will wait 15, 20 years later to put out a part 3 or just a remaking of that franchise, and it's not well received. Because 15, 20 years have passed. A new generation have come into play. They didn't see or grow up with that particular cult classic that you're trying to push back onto the culture, who you yourself, industry, have not realized that culture has gotten older and the culture has changed and shifted. So the content that you give us can't be the same shit you gave us in the 90s, in the 80s, in the early 2010s, in the 70s, and the 60s, and so on and so forth. Each decade has a trend, and then the new decade comes. Don't nobody want to do that shit no more 10 years ago. We want to do some new shit. Applying that to the comedy culture, where comedians are complaining about the fact that people are sensitive. I'm not saying that people ain't sensitive. Even I can't stand certain sensitive people. Like, people are sensitive and offended by the things I say. I'm conscious of that, and I'm self-aware of that. So believe it or not, outside of something that absolutely has to be said, I don't just come at people to offend them. I don't get a kick out of offending people. Contrary to what y'all might believe about me, what you think you know about me, whatever assumptions you've drawn in your head about me, I don't enjoy offending people. I don't get any enjoyment out of it. And if anything, I have to psych myself up to say certain things which may be offensive, and I have to just tell myself, people gonna get offended by what you finna say. And I have to say to myself, fuck that. They just gonna have to be offended, because I gotta say this. But I'm not a comedian. I can be funny. I know I say funny shit and I'm silly. I like laughing and I like being funny. But I'm not a comedian. I'm not a person who stands on stage and tells jokes and get paid for it. That's a comedian. That's a person who stands on stage, whether they're going off freestyle or they going off memory. They have the mic in their hand and they telling jokes on the spot in front of people. That's not something I do for a living. But am I funny? Can I be funny? Yes. I try to be. I try my best to be silly, funny, goofy, and positive, and make everything laughter. And if we can't laugh about it, at least we can just be smooth about it. I understand and I realize that I offend people. Very self-aware. Trust and believe, I am aware that I've offended people. But what I want y'all to understand is, it is not my intention to offend people when I say certain truths and hold certain people accountable, point out certain things that people don't want to face, shit like that. So people are only offended by the fact that I'm pointing out the elephant that are in rooms. So where I sit, if I come in a room full of elephants, I'm going to point them out. People ignore elephants in rooms. I'm not a person who likes to ignore the elephant. The elephant loud, the elephant is stampeding, the elephant is destroying shit. Somebody do something about that fucking elephant. But you will be surprised that people can sit in a room and watch an elephant stampede and act like the elephant's not there. Roaring, stampeding, fucking shit up, and then they'll just step out the way as long as the elephant don't step on them. They don't care. They won't even react. Me, I notice the elephant. I see the elephant. I'm making noise about the elephant. I'm agitating the elephant. I'm poking at the elephant, trying to get the elephant the hell out the room. If anybody else gonna do it, then I'll fight this goddamn elephant. This elephant got to go, because this elephant is taking up too much space in this room. And that offends people, because people don't want to deal with that elephant. So that offense, in that regard, people who are offended by me in that regard, I'm only pointing out the elephants that are in the rooms in those conversations, or those subjects, or those topics. If you're offended by the fact that I'm pointing out the elephant, then that's just you not wanting to be held accountable. That's your narcissism wanting you to be dismissive, and you want to, nope, open mind, nope, don't show it to me. No, I'm open mind, I don't want to see it. No, stop trying to show me that thing that I don't want to look at. Open mind, stop trying to talk to me about that thing that I don't want to talk about. That type of shit. You're only offended because I'm holding you accountable. But comedians are not holding people accountable. They're just telling jokes on stage. Yes, we all hold people accountable, but I'm saying in a sense, a comedian's job is to hold accountability. A comedian's job is to make people laugh and tell jokes. So my issue that I want to bring to this selective accountability video is comedians, y'all need to learn how to adjust with the climate. If you can look out into the world and see that people are extra sensitive, you can't then complain and say, people are too sensitive. Dang, y'all making my job hard. Nah, you don't get to do that, comedian. You supposed to adjust with the times. You supposed to adjust. You can't do it like you used to do it. I know it pisses you off. I know you're irritated by the fact that you've been doing comedy a certain way, and up until this point, now you can't do it that way no more because people are offended and sensitive. So you blame the people instead of yourself. You've been doing something a certain way for a long period of time, and it's been working, right? I want y'all to understand that I'm following you. See, I know how to speak in context, and I know how to separate and identify things where people take conversations and run all over the place with them. People are so used to framing narratives, they don't know how to have a conversation in context. They don't know how to turn that shit on and off. You're so used to being a narrative framer that you forgot to have a direct conversation. You forgot how to have a direct conversation with a person and speak on the issue that at hand and keep it in context and stay on topic. Because y'all so used to being the narrative framers that y'all are, you have lost the ability to have a direct one-on-one back and forth with somebody and stay within the realm of the topic without deviating or jumbling other things together to avoid dealing with the issue of the conversation is about. It's a conversation game that y'all play, little word games that y'all play, but you're really just being evasive and you don't want to deal with what the subject is being brought to you because it requires you to be held accountable. So you would rather dance around, play the whataboutism. Well, what about this or what about that? Ask you a direct question. Your response and answer to my direct question is, what about this? What about that? Not an answer. I asked you a question that requires you to fill in a blank. You don't fill in that blank with an answer. You fill in the blank with another question of whataboutism, which is that behavior is evasive. That behavior is somebody who does not want to deal with accountability. That response of what about blank as a response to my question, my direct question that I asked you, if you are the person I'm talking about, your immediate response to that is, well, what about blank? Instead of giving an answer, you refuse to give an answer. You refuse to entertain that question. You're going to respond with that question with what about blank? Which that mean that behavior is somebody who does not want to be held accountable. That's a person that does not like accountability. So instead of answering the direct question, you say, what about blank? You think of an example and then you fill in that blank and then you make them deal with your question so that you ain't got to answer their question. Behavior, see, that's an elephant that I'm pointing out. That's the things that people do in conversation, especially celebrities, rich people, or people are prominent, successful people who feel like they can't be held accountable. They'll dismiss you. Comedians are very dismissive when held accountable. But I'm trying to tell y'all comedians that y'all need to adjust to the sensitive climate. People are sensitive. People are easily offended. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't shame people into no longer being offended. You can't shame people into no longer being sensitive. You can't control people's emotions and feelings. You can't. You don't have that power. You can complain about it. You can say to yourself, I wish people wasn't so sensitive. I wish people would just learn how to take a joke. I wish people would blank. You can do that rant, right? You can do that. but they're not necessarily going to change because you did that rant. In context conversation. As a comedian, you want to complain about the fact that people are sensitive and people need to learn how to take a joke. That's what y'all say, right? I understand that. And I'm saying to you in response to that is just because you said that does not make people any less sensitive or less offended. You can sit down and break down the comedian's job and role. A comedian's job is to do this, and this. It is our job to do this, that, and the other. You can sit there and break it all. You can sit there and break it all down. Sorry, my phone rang. You can break it all down to the people who don't understand a comedian's job. And when you're done breaking that down, people can still feel offended and be a sensitive person. So then what you gonna do? What's the next step? Because that solution that you give in your rant is not working, comedians. So why won't y'all just adjust? Adjust your jokes. Adjust your funny to the climate like Richard Pryor did. We deem him the king of comedy. He's the king of comedy for a reason. Not just the jokes he told, but his ability to adjust to the climate. Y'all comedians, and y'all used to being a comedian a certain way. Times are changing, and you yourself as a comedian want to remain the same. And you, instead of you changing and adjusting and evolving yourself, you want everybody else to stay the same so your job can be easy like it's always been. You struggle, you have your struggles and your ups and downs as a comedian. But when you get on stage, there's a level of easiness depending on the crowd. Certain crowds make your job hard. Certain crowds make your job easy. But it's not the crowd fault. It's your fault. You get to take the credit for making people laugh. You also have to take the credit for people who ain't laughing. Take responsibility, not the credit. You go into a room and you bomb on stage as a comedian. Don't blame the room. Blame yourself for not reading the room. Comedians who have bombed on stage, the prominent ones and the ones who are not so prominent. Y'all have bombed on stage before, and then you blame the crowd for you bombing on stage. Man, this crowd whack. This crowd can't take a joke. This crowd is uppity. This crowd is sensitive. This crowd is whatever excuse you give for bombing on stage. You go to another comedy club and you kill it. And you take credit for killing it. I went to this club and I rocked the house. So you can take credit for doing something well and good, but you won't take responsibility for bombing on stage. You won't. That's what I'm talking about. That's what this selective accountability is about. I will celebrate when I triumph over a comedy situation. I made everybody laugh, so I'm going to feel good about myself. But if I piss everybody off, I'm not going to take responsibility for that. That's on y'all. And that's bullshit, comedians. That's fucking bullshit right there. Y'all narcissistic for that bullshit. Nobody's saying that you can't be a comedian and tell jokes. What we saying is you don't get to do whatever the fuck you want to do no more. You gotta adjust, or we gonna give you this work. Period. It ain't about your performance, it's about the shit you say and how you say it. The jokes you choose to make. I'm a comedian, all I do is tell jokes, I'm just telling jokes. You are deciding which jokes you're telling, comedian. Them jokes coming from your head. Ain't nobody putting a gun to your head and saying, tell a fucked up joke about somebody's health condition or mental condition or personal life. Nobody's forcing you to tell that joke. You chose to tell that joke, knowing it might offend some people. But you decided in the moment before you told the joke that you didn't give a fuck about who was going to be offended by your joke. And if they can't take a joke, fuck them. Fine. Here's what comedians need to understand. This is your stance. If a motherfucker can't take a joke, fuck him, right? That's how y'all feel. Okay. It works both ways, comedians. If you offend me in your jokes, fuck you. How come I can't say fuck you, comedian? Do not condone Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. The action of slapping Chris Rock was wrong. But that's Will Smith in that moment saying, fuck you. How you gonna take a fuck you stance as a comedian for somebody not being able to take your joke? But we can't take a fuck you stance to you for telling a joke. We can't feel in our mind, fuck you, what you just said. I can't feel like that. I'm sensitive. But you can be sensitive in the fact that somebody can't take your joke. You're just a sensitive comedian. You're sensitive comedian who says that somebody's too sensitive to take my joke. So then you reply ranting, mad, pissed off, irritated, frustrated. That's you being sensitive. The elephant in the room that don't nobody want to talk about. It is equally sensitive for a comedian to get mad at somebody for being sensitive. You are actively being sensitive when you complain about the fact that people are sensitive and offended by what you said. That is an act of sensitivity in and of itself. So then we're all hypocrites at the end of the day when it comes to Will Smith and Chris Rock. Everybody. So then what are we talking about then? So what, we saw the slap take place on national TV. Slaps take place all the time. They're not televised. People physically attack people all the time for shit they say every day. Somebody's being physically attacked right now as I speak about some shit they said out their mouth in somebody's face. They're not getting lectured about how we should carry ourselves, not respond violently to the things people say, because it's not becoming of an adult. You gotta respond with grace and then positivity. You can't be attacking people. That's how y'all talking, right? But that ain't what the fuck's really going on in this real world. In this real world, motherfuckers is getting physically attacked for the shit that they say. Whether that's right or wrong, whether we agree with it or not, it's happening. So what are we gonna do about it is the question. Instead of trying to shame people for their actions, how about we control the shit we say and do so that people don't have to react? I think, in other words, it's a circle of bullshit. You set somebody up to react, and then you reacted. It was a setup in the first place. It's like you set a trap for a person. They step on it, spring the trap, and then you laugh at them and shame them for stepping in the trap that you set for them. That is narcissism. That's that bullshit. You feel me? That's that bullshit. Y'all can't, as comedians, you can't remove yourself from accountability just because you're a comedian. You can't. You are in this shit too, comedians. Y'all are in this shit. I side with Dave Chappelle as it pertains to his gay jokes. I don't feel as though he hates gay people, but I can't tell the LBG community how to feel about Dave Chappelle's gay jokes. So if the gay community, those who are offended by the shit Dave Chappelle says, they have a right to be offended by the shit Dave Chappelle says. And Dave Chappelle should respect how them people feel and adjust his jokes. I personally don't think his jokes are that bad, but I'm not gay. I'm not in the LGBT community. I don't live that life. So how would I know how it feels? You see what I'm saying? You see where you have to be mindful and considerate of other people, even if you personally don't see a big deal? I'm going to say this again. Let me repeat this before I end the video. because we 35 minutes in now. I personally do not see anything wrong with Dave Chappelle's comedy special. But there are certain people, groups of people, whether it's 3 or 3,000 or 300, got an issue with Dave Chappelle's comedy special as it pertains to his gay jokes. And if they want to feel offended and feel a way about it, they have a right to feel a way about it. If they don't want to buy into his comedy, watch his comedy special, they don't have to watch it. And Dave Chappelle got to eat that and own that shit. Even though I take his side, he still got to own that shit and eat that shit because he offended some people. A lot of motherfucking people. I don't see the issue in his jokes, but it ain't for me to see. The people who take issue, you gotta consider how the fuck they feel, even if you don't think it's that big a deal. You can't dismiss people's feelings because you ain't tripping. That's the narcissism in all of us. Because I don't think something is a big deal, it should be dismissed and not talked about. So fuck your feelings. Fuck what you're going through. I don't think it's a big issue, so fuck what you're going through. And that, in turn, frustrates people. They feel unheard, dismissed, overlooked. So then they'll lash out, do something that they probably shouldn't do, but they got to get your attention somehow because you won't listen to them or pay attention to them any other way. They got to do something chaotic for you to even focus on what they're trying to tell you when they're doing it positive. Somebody said, I'm offended by this. A group of people who don't think that that's a big deal, get over it, quit crying, you little bitch, you little pussy, blah, 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 is how those people react. That person feels even more unheard, more dismissed, so they do something stupid, and then now we're telling that person they're wrong for how they acted. Nobody wants to play the accountability game within themselves. They want to select their accountability. Pick and choose and cherry pick who we gonna hold accountable. Pick and choose and cherry pick who we gonna overlook and let slide. At the top of this video, I told y'all the Richard Pryor story. Richard Pryor was not protested against or fussed at. He didn't have social media. He had an epiphany in his own mind that he's going to stop saying the N-word in his stand-up comedy so that he wouldn't offend his people. Nobody came to him and told him that him saying the N-word was offensive. He just came to that conclusion on his own. He wasn't shamed into doing it. Nobody had to rant to him about it. He just landed in Africa, was greeted with love and welcoming care from African people, and he felt guilty about the fact that he was saying nigga so much. So he stopped saying nigga. He could have kept saying nigga. We would have still supported him. But that man decided that he wants to stop saying nigga on this damn comedy special because he didn't want to offend his people. And there's nothing wrong with that. If he had kept saying it, we would have still loved Richard Pryor. He stopped saying it. We love Richard Pryor even more, respect him for coming to grips with his issues or mistakes and before somebody else do. He held himself accountable. If Richard Pryor is who y'all aspire to be as comedians, it's more than just jokes. It's about integrity. It's about self-accountability. It's about understanding the climate around you is changing and evolving. 10 years from now, y'all gonna have to change y'all comedy again if you're still a comedian. Because 10 years from now, it's gonna be a different group of people watching comedy. The internet comedians who started off as internet comedians in this time, 10, 15 years from now, are gonna have to adjust their comedy because they're gonna be a new set of comedians coming in with a different machine that they work in. The internet comedians is working the internet machine with their funny. The old school on stage comedians is just learning how to use the internet, but a lot of them don't know how to use the internet and they not trying to learn. They're doing it their old way. And they're going to keep doing it that way until they can't do it that way no more. Then they'll sit down and retire. Because some people just don't want to change. The internet comedians now who started off on the internet and still doing their thing with their subscribers, even y'all 10, 15 years from now, gonna have to change the way y'all do comedy because there's gonna be a group of people who gonna find issue with the shit y'all do. How y'all gonna act? Are y'all gonna own your shit? Own your shit? Take accountability for yourself? Are y'all gonna adjust with the times? Or y'all gonna be complaining about how people too sensitive? And back when I used to do it back in 2022, back in 22 when I used to do it like this and people ain't care. Now it's 2032 and I got all this flack. Accountability. I'll say it before I end this video. Will Smith was wrong for slapping Chris Rock, the act of slapping him. But y'all don't get to decide how somebody feels. Comedians offend people daily, and they don't give a shit about it. And that's fine if you don't give a shit about it. If you don't give a fuck about the fact that you offend people, then you can't then decide how those people react afterwards. No, they shouldn't physically attack you. No, they shouldn't attack you, your character and your personality and your paycheck and shit. But if they do, you can't get mad at them because you've dismissed them. You felt like how they feel don't matter. So fuck how they feel. If you can't take my jokes, fuck you. It's how you as a comedian carry yourself. So in return, if somebody say, fuck you back and slap the shit out you, or physically attack you, or go online and attack you and try to tear you down, you can't get mad at that. Because that's them saying fuck you. You can't say fuck you to somebody, but don't want to be told fuck you back. That's narcissism. That's some bullshit. You got the world fucked up as a human. Fuck your comedy right now. This is human being interaction. You as a human cannot treat another human a certain way and then expect that human to not retaliate. You don't get to walk around on earth like that. I'm sorry. I know that type of shit may offend people. It's not my intention. I'm just trying to give you the truth and those elephants in the room. You cannot have it your way only and everybody else got to bow to you. No, we're not bowing to you. I'll laugh at your jokes. I'll support your comedy. But if you take the fuck you attitude, I don't give a fuck how you feel, I'm this, I'm that, if that's the attitude you take, then when that energy is given back to you, you can't get mad. You just can't. You just gave that energy. How the fuck you gonna get mad because somebody gave it back to you? You threw that energy at somebody. Fuck you, I don't give a fuck how you feel about what I say, energy. You gave that to the crowd, to a person who heckled you. That's what you gave to them. Fuck you, I don't care how you feel, I'm a comedian. So if they reply with fuck you and whatever they say, you can't get mad. How you gonna get mad at somebody for doing to you what you just did to them? And on that note, this your boy Open Mind dropping truth bombs like I always do. Not trying to offend nobody. I'm trying to clear this room of all these motherfucking elephants that y'all don't hear roaring and stampeding all over this goddamn room. Y'all don't hear them elephants roaring and destroying shit. I do. And I'm trying to get rid of these motherfucking elephants in this room. Creator bless y'all. Get money. Deuces.